All right, welcome back to the next episode of the Jon Gil Podcast Show. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the misconceptions between portfolio size and how it relates to your actual bottom line. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you can hit that like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. So as I was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions about, I think a lot of people are trying to increase their real estate portfolio. They see different investors with 300 units, 500 units, 2,000, 3,000 units. And it sounds sexy. It sounds great. But sometimes what most people aren't aware of is that you can have a lot fewer units, and at the end of the day, you may actually be worth more, or you may have more cash flow than the person that has, say, has syndicated into like a 2,000 or 3,000 property portfolio. And I'll explain that. So at the end of the day, it really just depends on how much equity did you give away to be involved in that next deal, right? So for example, and I had a great conversation with a buddy of mine about this, which was, you can own, say, 300 units, but if you are a general partner and you're only making, say, 10% or 20% versus a guy who maybe has 50 units, some two flats, single families, but he owns them 100% and he bought them right, you may have more equity on and more value on the 50 unit versus, say, on that maybe 300 unit. And I know it sounds crazy, but if you're looking at it, it's, syndications, they give a big chunk of the cash away to the limited partners, and that's how they're able to raise their funds. And they also get a portion of the cash flow. So again, maybe 50% or 70% of the cash flow goes to the investors, and the general partner may have only, they're going to have a certain lower percentage there. So say 40%, but within the general partnership, there may be another 4 or 5 people that has to get split between. So that's why they're always trying to acquire many more units, because at some point there is a tipping point where, now they're going to have a lot more appreciation, or it gets to a certain size that at some point, they will be getting the cash flow that maybe the 50 unit guy has. So, but in order to do that, they have to continually be closing. And a lot of their money also comes from just the fees. They'll charge points to their investors for the acquisition. They may charge a 2-point acquisition fee. They might do a 2-point construction fee. They're probably the property managers. Maybe, their management company, they get something through there. But really, even most property management companies, you're not really making that much money. You can, but it's more of a cash flow thing. But 6% on the gross revenue of 300 units, yeah, that starts to add up, of course. But it depends on how many people you have on the payroll. And I always say it just really depends on your bottom line. So I think it's great to want to increase as many properties to your portfolio as possible. But again, I'm just trying to clear up the misconception that when you hear someone say, oh, I've got 1,000 units or I have 2,000 units, you really want to dig deeper and say, okay. And that's great for them. Again, honestly, if you're starting to ask these sort of questions like, well, really, what is their bottom line? You're not focusing on the right thing. You're not, you're focusing too much on somebody else's take-home pay versus on how much you can, on yourself and how you can be increasing more revenue for yourself, okay? So just that thinking alone, I try to stay away from as much as possible. Someone once taught me, don't count someone else's money. And And they're right. As long as you're getting a good deal at the end of the day, don't be that guy that's, always looking to see what the other person is making, because you're focusing then on the wrong things. You want to focus on your own personal growth. But just kind of going back to it, because I've been asked this a lot. This is why I'm addressing it. That could be a misconception. So the point is, even if you have 8 units or 2 units or 10 units, don't get discouraged. You're on the right track. And, your bottom line, again, might be just as much as someone else's who has 300, because their splits are just totally different. Okay? So that was essentially it. I was just trying to clear up the misconception, and don't focus too much on what other people are making. Focus on yourself. Focus on your own personal growth. Focus on being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, because really, there's a saying that we aren't the best version of ourselves. We are the worst version of ourselves that we are willing to accept. So always be improving. And that was it. Thank you so much. When you get a chance, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.